Welcome back to the Russell Fugit Show. I'm Russell Fugit. I'm really excited today to kick off this new series that I'm doing. And I really hope to give a lot of value to people. I'm really looking to help men who own businesses who are trying to increase their profits, grow their business, while also leading their family, while also stewarding their wives and their marriage, right, and their personal finances and being fathers, right? So that's really the intersection of how do you pursue the vision God has given you, but also make sure that you prioritize the vision God has given you for your family, for your marriage, and how do you grow that? And so I've created prayerfully the AIMS framework. And there's multiple layers to this framework. I'm going to be creating some unique ways in the coming weeks and months that will allow many of you to access the framework and actually integrate your own life into the framework. And so there'll be some unique ways to do that. Certainly you can connect with me through Joseph Coach, through our Progress Partnership Accelerator. You can find out all about that on myprogresscoach.com. But I really want to give this value to everyone. I really believe this is something that God's placed in my heart. And my 40 plus years on this planet, I believe, have also allowed me to really live into a lot of what I'm going to share with you today. So I'm going to start out with, again, AIMS, A-I-M-S. A is the first letter. And there's 5 components at the A level. So there's multiple levels, each letter of AIMS. There's multiple words that I'm going to unpack and teach. But today we're going to just start with the letter A. I'm going to share my screen here. See if I can get the right tab to show up. So here's the AIMS framework. Again, we're going to start with the power of assets. And you really want to build what's going to last. And of course, in business and marriage and legacy. So as you see here, we're going to focus on the 5th pillar, and I'll just scroll down. There's 5 components at the A level, right? So alignment, attitude, action, accountability, and assets. Today, we're going to get into assets, right? And that's really about stewardship, right? We might get to that when we get to the S. But really, what has God given you that has value? All of us have value, certainly in the eyes of God. All of us have some kind of value that we can bring to the marketplace. Most people will do that through their employment. But those of us who are called to do this entrepreneurially, and perhaps you're doing it entrepreneurially in the context of employment. And I'm talking to you too. Really, this can apply to anyone, right? But how do you manage your assets? How have you gone about even discovering what assets you have? Maybe you're asking, what exactly is an asset? Maybe you've heard the term and aren't too sure. So we're going to come back to these other 4 A's in the future, but we're going to start right now with assets. So what are assets? So we're going to look at the biblical context and we're going to look at the business context. And we're going to start today with the business context. So assets are things that produce value, right? And that can be your time. Time certainly is an asset we all share the same amount of, right? We can't get more of it than anybody else, right? We all have a talent. We have access to certain resources, systems, relationships are certainly things that are considered assets, right? You may, of course, own stock. You may own property. You may own real estate. You may have intellectual property, right? So in the case of business, you're really thinking about product, right? Your product is an asset, and the product can be something that's physical and tangible. It also can be something that you bundle together or productize. It can be a suite of services that you create into a product. It can be some kind of offer, right? It can be a digital product. There's so many different ways to create a product, right? And then process. These are systems. This also can be intellectual property. Just being able to package the system of how you get from point A to point B. How do you achieve a certain result, a certain outcome? That intellectual property is extremely valuable and is an asset. Assets like that, it can exist in a book, an ebook, some other creative mechanism or video you put on YouTube, right, is an asset. These are types of things that can create value, create monetary value, create relational value, create spiritual value, right? Create value, and they can create value while you're sleeping. They can give people access to information, ideas, systems, processes, tools that they need to be successful without necessarily having to access you in your time, because your time is an asset. And then, of course, people. Certainly people, relationships are also assets. And not to diminish or minimize people, but certainly we do things in community. Even in the Bible, Jesus sent the apostles out 2 by 2, right? And so we really want to understand the value and the asset it is to have relational value in people. So, of course, here's some business examples: cash flow, capital reserves. I mentioned intellectual property. You create a TV show, you create something from your brain, from your imagination. You bring something to life. Customer relationships, reputation. Reputation is certainly an asset. I think it says in Proverbs, above all, you want to have a good reputation. I mentioned real estate, equipment, certainly physical things. If you're really looking, if you're in the finance space, if you're in real estate, if you've even purchased a home, you understand the value of a tangible, a hard asset. If you seek to borrow money, to use leverage to do something in business or in your personal life, then certainly you understand the need for collateral. And that is going to reflect some kind of asset that the financial institution will deem valuable enough to loan you money against. And then the last thing I already mentioned, documented process and systems. The key word here is documented. A lot of people have ideas. I have a good idea. Well, I have what I think is a good idea almost every day. A lot of people have ideas, but are they valuable to somebody besides yourself? Have you taken the time to document those ideas? Write them down, record yourself, whether it's a voice memo, whether it's here on YouTube, whether it's something else. Have you documented your idea? And do you know if it has value to someone else? Perhaps it's only an asset to you, and that's fine. But if you want to grow, you want to know that there's a market need for what you are creating. For leveraging the gift of our imagination that all human beings have to create something that doesn't exist. Everything we have, all this technology, so many things we have did not exist until someone imagined it and then documented it and then attempted to construct it or design it or build it. So think about that. And I have a quote down here, and I've been in the solo entrepreneur space, and I know a lot of people are. Most businesses are solo entrepreneurs, solo businesses, don't have employees. And if your business's only asset, you don't have a business. You just have a job with extra stress. You work for yourself. And let me be very clear. There's no shame in your game for working for yourself, for being self-employed. I've been there. You're putting food on the table, you're providing for your family, you're leading your family. Many of us have started there. Many of us, that's what we're called to do, perhaps, depending on what our skill set is, depending on what our assets that we bring to the table. Depending on how God has called us to show up and serve, that may be your calling in this season. Who knows what the future holds? But I know for many of us, we have the desire to grow, to scale, and it can be really challenging. How do you do it? What's the next step? How do you increase profit? How do you, and when do you hire? When do you do 1099 versus a W-2? When do you purchase or sign a lease for an office? Or if you're a food truck, when do you get the restaurant? I've met and talked to so many entrepreneurs who are trying to figure out what is that next step to scale. I've had as many as 6 people on my team and had to go back down to just me. And I've done that a few times, I have to admit. And so I understand that journey very intimately. So again, as you think about assets, how can your business grow your assets? And for many of us, the easiest thing to do is going to be in the intellectual property space. It's going to be documenting systems and processes. It's going to be leveraging what we have here, what God has given us uniquely as human beings. Elephants don't have it, lizards don't have it, animals don't have it. We uniquely are in the image of God, created with our imagination to create things, create systems, create processes, create frameworks, invent things. My great-great-grandfather escaped enslavement in Tennessee, and in 1888, he acquired a U.S. patent. And according to my research, there were only maybe a couple hundred at most Black Americans at that time who had filed for a U.S. patent in 1888. He had his own blacksmith shop in upstate New York near Syracuse, owned a farm. So if he could do it in 1888, I know we can do it now. He had a vision. He had an idea. He learned a skill, a trade. When he escaped enslavement, he learned the trade of blacksmith and creatively created a spring mount for like a horse, like a buggy that will attach to a horse. He and created an improvement to the spring mount. He also built his own house. I think many of you will appreciate this. They say that the architecture of the house represents a Western African style of architecture that no other house in the city or in the region has. And the house still stands to this day in Baldwinsville, New York. So again, where we want to start is what can we create? It can be a new system on how to make French fries in the food truck. I don't know what it is, but everyone has something. So let's look at some biblical examples of this, assets in the biblical context. God is the ultimate asset manager, right? The earth is the Lord and everything in it. So have you submitted your idea? Have you submitted yourself to be quiet long enough, to write long enough, to design and architect long enough, to collaborate with your partners, your friends, your family long enough, and then to be still within yourself to understand the asset that you have? And then once you have that asset, how are you stewarding? So the stewardship principle, as it says here, is foundational. So what you think you own, God's really loaned to you. And I think about that as a parent, certainly, that I have 2 young kids right now, and they're in my home, but I know they really belong to God. One day they're going to grow up and leave and have their own life and their own call. So really, they belong to Him. But your faithfulness with what God has given you will allow you to grow, will allow you to take territory, and will demonstrate that you are worthy of being trusted with more through your obedience, right? So, of course, Joseph. Now, I love Joseph. My first name is Joseph. My middle name's Russell. Joseph, and I love the Josephs of the Bible. So, of course, Genesis Joseph is perhaps my favorite, although the second Joseph, the wealthy Joseph in the Gospels, also very fascinating. But, of course, Joseph in Genesis, right? He managed Pharaoh's assets with wisdom and foresight and built storehouses that saved nations, including his own family, during famine. Of course, he went from the pit to the palace, so to speak. And, of course, you have Joseph, the mother of, the husband of Mary, Jesus' earthly father. Talk about stewarding an asset. I dare to even call Jesus an asset. I think you get the point. He certainly taught Jesus a trade of carpenter. And I know, I believe Joseph died before Jesus' earthly ministry. But can you imagine for Jesus' first 20 years, 25 years of life, what impact did he have stewarding his son, teaching him the trade of blacksmith, right? Managing, giving him a trade until his time came. And then, of course, Joseph, who approached, I believe it was Pontius Pilate, and asked for the body of Jesus, right? So someone that was a business person, someone that had wealth, said, give me Jesus' body. And that, of course, was key. And I'll admit, I saw this, I believe it was an African pastor, shared this on Instagram recently. And it was very powerful to me. He's able to purchase Jesus' body so that it could be properly buried and put in the tomb. If that had not happened, right, Jesus might not have been able to, theoretically, rise from the dead. If the body wasn't cared for, we wouldn't have gotten the miracle. So we needed business people. Even for the prophecies of Jesus returning, coming back to life, to be made true, we needed business people. Of course, Abraham stewarded spiritual and material wealth, right? He was a wealthy person. And of course, he was radically obedient. We know that story. And then, of course, I don't want to leave women out. Proverbs 31, women, right? Women buy fields strategically, trade it profitably in the marketplace. My wife and I really love, in the book of Acts, Priscilla and Aquila were a couple who aided Paul and later Timothy in the spreading of the gospel in their ministry. And the thing that's interesting about this, and for the men who are listening, Priscilla actually is mentioned more than Aquila. So even as for women who are watching, who see this, I want you to know that you certainly have a very powerful place in the marketplace and are responsible for managing assets. So again, stewardship always precedes multiplication. So God's going to test you with little before giving you much. And that is in the gospel, certainly. So let's look at Jesus and stewardship. And of course, that dovetails right into the parable of the talents in the book of Matthew. I think a lot of us may know this, right? The master distributed resources according to each servant's ability, not equally, but strategically. So this is a good point here. Do not compare yourself. Don't get caught up in comparing. In this day of social media, it's so easy to get caught up in comparing yourself to someone else. but you must be very clear and not get distracted to understand what do you have uniquely that you're called to steward. What are you called to increase? And you can get off course and distracted. So faithful servants are going to multiply their assets through investing in their skill set, which can be an asset, their tool, developing their tool set, and then taking bold action. Don't be afraid and bury your talent. Literally your talent. Your talent is an asset. Do not bury it. And as you see here, Matthew 25:29, to everyone who has, more will be given, and he will have abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. So we're called very clearly to move forward in leveraging our assets, what we have, right? Increase is God's expectation. It's not an accident. This is not prosperity gospel, right? What could seem little to someone else, or to you rather, can be all the difference to someone else, can be all the difference for the purposes of God's kingdom, that you stewarded your talent, stewarded your asset well. So again, he rewards those who take calculated risk in partnership with the Holy Spirit and leverage what's entrusted to them. I even might want to change this, come back to it and take out the word calculated, because through diligent prayer and seeking God, it's really a faith journey. Of course, in the natural, it's going to seem risky in many cases, but truly the faith journey is not a calculation. So I'm gonna amend myself here on this. So what assets has God trusted you to multiply, and are you investing in them or burying them? That's a core question. That's a core question. So again, coming back to some assets, right? Many of us overlook the assets that we have. Certainly our time is a limited resource. Your testimony, your story. We live in an age where personal brand is powerful, where story is powerful, certainly because we have the digital medium to share and communicate around the world. But this is nothing new, right? Your story, your testimony is really what truly, going back hundreds or thousands of years, people's story, people's testimony is what turned people to Jesus, what made people realize that who Jesus was. It's through people's story, not because they knew the Bible inside and out, not because they prayed better than someone else, but because they had a powerful story of what had happened in their life. Then I talked about team, right? We do it in community. We lock arms. I love to talk about the cross model. One of my mentors shared this with me number 15, 20 years ago, right? You always want to serve people who are coming behind you. So that's down. You want to lock arms with your peers. And then you want to find someone who hopefully will mentor you and pour into you. And that's the cross model, right? But who is on your team? Who are you locking arms with, right? And then tools, systems, skills, processes. What have you created? So sometimes these things are often overlooked. Oh, my story is not that important. It's just my life. No, your story is important. So you don't want to waste your time. So you don't want to overlook your team. Don't want to overlook the ideas that are right around you. Do you engage your wife occasionally around your business? Do you get a different perspective? Do you ask your children? I've often asked my children, my daughter's right here off camera, what they think about something, because I value their perspective, because God has put something inside of them too that's already coming forward. I'm just trying to call it out, and I get to benefit from it because they're pouring into me without even realizing it. And then the world gets to benefit because they've put their touch, their perspective, right? And we know that God has loves the children and has equally blessed them with imagination, equally blessed them with an intelligent perspective. So have you asked them? I know my late uncle, who was the first Black American billionaire, Reginald F. Lewis. He always would call my late grandmother and get her advice. And she was a high school dropout, both a degree from the School of Hard Knocks. And those were her words, not mine. And oftentimes she had a level of wisdom that was quite profound that you can't acquire through a degree or a course. But there was a level of wisdom that she had earned through experience and also earned through her faith, certainly. So again, Moses had the staff in his hand when God called him, right? So that was his tool, right? That was his asset, was that staff. So great example here, your next level is usually hidden in what you already hold. And sometimes you need to share what you're holding, what you're working through with someone else. Oftentimes, I'd say you got to share with someone else so they can call it out of you. They can point it out. What is common to you because it's your gift is not common to everybody else. And it can be challenging to see it for yourself that it's valuable to someone else. So usually it's right there. Usually it's right there around you. So stop looking externally. My late godfather, and I got a lot of ancestors. I've been blessed. Abner Haynes, he's in the Kansas City Chiefs Ring of Honor for you who are football fans. You can look him up. He always said people would quickly look for the flashlight as opposed to looking in the mirror. So oftentimes we're looking for the flashlight, trying to find the problems out there somewhere when the problem is really us. Right? God has given us something already, how we figured out, how we sought God, how we talked and been in community to find out what exactly that is. And let's look at multiplying assets. And again, there's modern and biblical models, certainly, right? So there's business multipliers, there's biblical multipliers. Let's look at some of these. So, of course, on the business side, automation. And we have tools like AI now who can automate so many things, systems that can work while you rest, right? And the most valuable assets like intellectual property, certain other types of assets certainly are things that can, digital products, online businesses can make money while you sleep. And that's really when you're creating wealth, when your idea, when something you've created is available in the marketplace and you can go spend your time elsewhere, right? Of course, the ability to delegate and empower others to execute your vision. Certainly before this AI revolution, you're looking at offshoring, working with people. I've had an assistant at one point do some marketing work for me from South Africa, right? I've been able to leverage a global network of talent. The internet, the technology allows that. Of course, being in partnerships, strategic alliances. I'm negotiating 2 partnerships right now. Lord willing, those will come through very soon. And I think they both could be very exciting. But the strategic alliances have a multiplier effect, right? The Bible says, or it was one ox can pull 1,000, but 2 can pull 10,000. So again, there's a multiplier effect, and that's biblical. It's foundational. It's a principle in the kingdom. And then licensing, right? Turning your knowledge into scalable assets, intellectual property. Getting things like royalties, getting a royalty on, which is a percentage of a sale based on something. If you created it, but someone else distributes it or sell it, maybe you get a royalty, lifetime royalty, right? There's all different types of business models that you can explore that can really allow you to continue to generate income. I've advised business owners that say, well, I have this invention and it's patented and I want to build a warehouse and I want to be able to back it and load it into trains and just sell it all over the world. And I said to them, why don't you just go to a company that has similar products and license it to them and get 5%, see what you can negotiate and get a percentage on every sale and let them put it in their stores, let them put it on their website and distribute it. And you get a lifetime royalty. You sit back and collect checks, but you're a product, and this is a product that was at the time potentially a game changer for people who lacked access to clean water or lacked access to refrigeration. Why don't you just have license that product as opposed to trying to scale up and do this capital intensive and people intensive thing that was going to be very difficult and time consuming when there could be an immediate scaling and immediate access and life changing access for this product, right? So again, think about things from there's so many different ways to leverage your asset, right? To put it to work. So again, we're going to go back to Joseph's model, right? That strategic foresight, discipline, saving, right? And that was obedience, right? So he was saving the abundance. So he was prepared for scarcity. And that planning multiplies provision. So you certainly have to understand when's it time to plan and when's it time to execute. And I've been challenged with that. I have a degree in planning. I'm a very pensive person. And sometimes that has led me to move too slowly when I should have moved much faster. And God bless my wife. She's someone who moves really fast. And we sometimes have to balance each other. And that's, again, living at the intersection of marriage and your business and learning. Okay, what's your spouse? What can you learn from her? When can you take something to her that she could give you some insight on, that you can improve yourself, improve your business, have growth, right? Again, every marriage is different, but think about that. And then you got Nehemiah's model, right? He mobilized resources and people through his vision. And clear direction attracts divine supply. So really, you have to lean in to get that clear direction so you know where to go. And not say you're going to know every step, but at least a clear direction to know what the first step is. And then keep seeking, keep engaging, keep going, and keep seeking God to get that direction you need. And then, of course, the Jesus model fed 5,000 with 5 loaves and 2 fish by blessing what he had. And that's that level of gratitude unlocks multiplication. I'd even submit that it unlocks miracles similar to what Jesus did, taking those loaves and having a multiplication effect through faith and through action, right? Go out and give the bread, distribute it. So maybe I only have 5, We can even talk about it practically. What if I only have 5 widgets to sell and I can't have money to make more? But you go sell those 5, you may learn a couple things along the way, and you created some resources where you can perhaps go back and make more, right? So there's something to taking action. There's something to finding the first customer that you can serve and serve them to the best of your ability. Ask them questions, learn along the way, and improve, and then go back, improve it, and go find someone else you can serve. That's when people say, how do I start? Where do I start my business? Find the first person and sell them something. Solve a problem for them. That's where you start. So we have the model. So again, what you bless will multiply. What you ignore, you lose. What you don't stick don't bury your talent. Don't get distracted. Where your attention goes, increase follows. So build, steward, multiply. God has given you more than you realize. You already have it. You just haven't discovered it yet. Or maybe you discovered it, you're still working it out, how to bring it forward to the marketplace. So again, it's not whether you have an asset, it's how are you stewarding them? Have you recognized it and are you stewarding it? So again, identify your assets, identify the systems you need to multiply, get the accountability you need to steward those assets, right? Find wise counsel. Are you being faithful to God, right? So a man knows what he has and who he is will never, and whose he is will never lack. And that's true. I've lived that, found that to be true. So your business, your marriage, your legacy, depend on how you answer these questions. Right? Identifying your assets, creating the systems, processes you need to bring those assets to create value in the marketplace, and then having that accountability, having that team, right? Choosing multiplication, choosing to honor God with everything he's placed in your hands, everything he's placed inside of you, calling it out, being around people who will help call it out. So there's a lot to think about here as you think about assets. What are your assets? So I hope this teaching blessed you today. And I just want to say, if you need someone to call things out of you, if you need someone, a number 2, who can rock with you, who can help you solve some of these problems, who can help you identify some of these strategies and systems you need, who can be a prayer partner with you, to support you at the intersection of growing your profit and leading your family, I want to be available to you. Please go to myprogresscoach.com, click under coaching. You see the Progress Partnership Accelerator for those of you who are ready to go fast. Also have a Joseph Coach offering if you want more of a counselor in your pocket, right? It's a very straightforward program. Sign up for our newsletter. We're getting that going. Some very good midweek recharge there for you on Wednesdays. We'll be going out. And just stay tuned here on the Russell Fugit Show. We're going to unpack this AIMS framework. And again, I love to get you guys into the Joseph Coaching Program or the Progress Partnership Accelerator so I can work with you and take your unique assets, what you have, and work through this framework with you so that you lead with a plan, you lead with a clear vision, and hopefully you don't just know the next step, but you know the next few steps you need to take to bring what God has given you, your talent, your gifts, what your abilities to the marketplace to meet critical needs in this critical time. So I want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching this. Leave a comment below. Share this with someone who you think it could bless. And then just be prayerful, be diligent. Ask your friends, ask your family, find those business partners, ask your mentor, ask the person you're mentoring, ask your kids. Make sure you get clear. God can use all those people around you to speak very clearly to you about what your assets are. Again, what seems ordinary to us could be extraordinary and life-changing to someone else. And I believe all of us have something that is going to be extraordinary to someone else if we just understand how to position it and make it available in the marketplace. We are called to be in the marketplace. Heard something very great. I've heard this a number of different ways. A lot of churches say come, but the Bible tells us to go. All right, so much, whether it's the apostles, so many people in the Bible existed and operated in the marketplace, reached people with the gospel in the marketplace, met critical needs like Joseph did in the marketplace. So stay tuned. There's a lot more coming. When this AIMS framework, there's a lot here. And to be frank, God has just downloaded it to me and continues to. I look forward to sharing it with you and creating value for you. Thanks for tuning in. Check out myprogresscoach.com. Follow me at Russell Fugit across all platforms. And we'll be back here real soon with, I think we'll jump into letter I in the AIMS framework. So stay tuned. Watch the next video here. God bless. Couldn't love you if I didn't love you. Peace.